Hello, my name is Mark Alexander and welcome back to Saber Outdoors. So today we are back in our basics series, and today's basics that we're going to go over is what is known as the jig. Now, when I say the jig, that means anything that you can think of in the way of a lead head with a hook behind it. Now, most of the time, that jig is a really broad term, so what comes after it is, what comes before or after it is the descriptor that will let you know what kind of jig it is. These are bass jigs. These bass jigs can be broken down into swim jigs, into football heads, into finesse, and there is a whole world of bass jigs out there that we could talk about, but this is basics. So you can see that has a lead head with a line tie on the hook. Now if that weight is somewhere else, it's some other kind of rig. It's, you know, Tokyo rig, Carolina rig, Texas rig. If it's on the hook, physically on the hook, that is a jig of some description, whether it be a crappie jig, a curly tail jig, a tube jig, a bass jig. It's a jig of some description. Now, jigs for bass, they don't have to look any particular way. You can see that one is pink, and the trailer I'm going to put on it is blue. This one is orange and brown, and the trailer I'm going to put on it is red. All these jigs have different trailers on them. This has a curly jig trailer that you may have seen in the that trailer in the Billy's Bucket Challenge. This has a fluke, or a soft jerk bait that I'm going to put on. This has a creature bait. This has a paddle tail swim bait. This has a craw. Craw is classically what is known for being the quote-unquote classic jig trailer, but you can make anything your jig trailer, and all that trailer is just something to give it a little extra flutter, extra pizzazz, extra spooky fingers, you know, extra jazz hands, you know, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to go through real quick and I'm going to rig these for you. So a bass jig, of course, has the lead up front, hook back here, and it always has a whisker in order to keep the weeds off of it. This is a weed guard. I call it a whisker. Now, some people trim these. I'm going to leave these like they are, and I'm going to show you real quick. So when I'm putting these on, I will move this whisker out of the way. Just move it plumb out of the way some ways. Move it out of the way. And when you're putting these on, center it up as best you can. Go in, and as soon as your bait makes the edge of the crook of that hook, you need to start bringing it out. And you will bring it out just like that. And then when you push it up onto the hook, there's usually a keeper on there for your plastics, and your plastics end up being straight. And then after you let everything go, the whole package ends up looking like that. Now that's for something with a solid body. So that technique works for these three. So that's the same for craws, paddle tails, creature baits. You do that same trick. Now for something like this, it is different. Let me get it out here. So of course, head, skirt, whisker. We're gonna bend our whisker down in just a moment. Let me show you the bait itself. So this has a cavity in the body And we're gonna use that. So we're gonna get all our stuff out of the way, get the whisker out of the way. If I can ever get it there. And we're gonna come into this bait just like before, but when we come to where that split is in this body, we're gonna come on out of the plastic right there. Now see, that's what it will look like when you do that. So my split is right there. Now we're gonna push that up some, and we're gonna push that on up onto our keeper that's on the bottom of this jig. And then we're gonna stick the point of this hook through, and as straight as we can get it, through the back. And see, well, we need a little more work on this one. Uh-oh. Pulled a piece of the jig through. It's all right though. Technical difficulties. It's okay though. All right, that's better. See how now we have that straight on there? And you can do that with any of them that have that cavity in the body. That's usually made so that you can use like a regular worm hook, so that when they bite the bait, more technical difficulties. Uno momento. All right, guys, so had some minor technical difficulties, but let me go back to what I was doing. So right there is what this ends up looking like whenever you're finished with this. And that tail, just, you can see with not that much movement, it's going all over the place. So this is our third kind of bait. Third kind, basic kind of trailer. Now this trailer is unique because it has really heavy ribbing on 3 sides, but not this side. So that's the side I'm gonna bring the hook out on, because I want all that ribbing to crush, excuse me, and then my fish ends up getting the bait. So again, move our whisker over, and we will put our thing in now. When it comes to the end of that bend on the other side, bring it out just like you would on these others, and then push it up onto the hook keeper that's on the back of the jig. And it ends up looking like this. And see how my hook is that right there, really exposed? If I had hooked this the other way around, it would be lost in these ribs. So that's how you're gonna basically hook up all of these particular baits. While we were in our technical difficulties, I went ahead and put these on. You can see they look really good. And your trailer doesn't necessarily need to match the coloring, because that's a black and blue creature on a purple and pink jig, but it looks so good. I think the bass are gonna go and just gonna nom that stuff. But these are for a particular video. These are for a future video that you will watch later. I'm gonna take very basic, like this is from Ollie's, and I know they sell these at other places, Walmart, what have you, but they're a pack of 3 basic brown and black and some accent color jigs. I'm gonna put 3 different types of trailers on these, and we're gonna go fishing with them and see if we can catch something. Don't you run off. We're gonna try them out. All right, guys, so we are at the pond, and I've got one of our jigs on the rod. So I'm going to show you the 3 basic retrieves. So the first one is the easiest one. You cast it out there and you just start reeling. This is what's known as swimming. Now this is more common with, what a shocker, a swim jig. But you can also do this with curly-tailed jigs and crappie jigs and tube jigs. And the vast variety of panfish jigs you fish in this manner. With bass jigs, you usually do it with just swim jigs, although this is not a technique that you need to exclusively use with just a swim jig. You can use this with a football jig, you can use this with a pitching jig, you can use it with anything, but it's most common with a swim jig. Now the second one, you cast out, you let that sink. You let that sink, give it, oh, I don't know, 5 seconds, maybe 10. If you're in a deep reservoir, you may have to give it more. But let it sink until you feel like it's on bottom. And then you pop it once, twice, and let it sit. You pop it once, twice, and let it sit. And you can alternate how much you do that. You can pop it twice fast. You can just give it one pop. It's just however you feel about it. But this is what's known as hopping. So you hop it off of the bottom, and that creates a plume coming up and then down, and the fish will wonder what's making that disturbance, what's making that to them, I'm sure it looks like noise. What's making that noise over there? And then they see, crawfish, I'll eat that. Shomp. But you would do that hopping motion over and over again until you got it all the way back to you. I'm gonna reel up so that I can show you the third thing. Hey, doing good today. Good to see the neighbors. Say hi to them while we're fishing for basics. While I'm showing you some basics of fishing. But the third most common, basic retrieve. Again, we let that go to the bottom. This retrieve is more for when it's extremely hot or when it's extremely cold. And it is what's known as dragging. So you take your reel and you reel it as slowly as you can stand it. And it just looks like something really gently coming across the bottom of the water. And of course, if you're trying to imitate crawfish, if it is wintertime, crawfish are cold-blooded. So of course, cold-blooded things ain't gonna be racing about. They're gonna be sitting still or moving very slowly like we see here. Now, this retrieve is really literally this slow. Now, this gives you a good opportunity to really feel the bottom and feel what the contour of your bottom is. So this pond is probably 95% mud. There are a few rocks and sticks and one log, which I lost a lure on earlier. And then around the edge, if you can see, there's these weeds. But out further on, the weeds are not as bad. Now, let's say your pond was loaded with weeds, just like what's in front of here. You need to go to a very light one of these. It's just like like laying down on your bed. Just imagine this is your bed. Does a small child dip your bed near as much as, say, a 300-pound southern boy like me? No, of course not. And that's true of this. And when you dip this down, all this grass, you hang it. But if you have a really light jig, you might, instead of hanging it, you may just dance over the top, which is really good for them big fish that are laying in the grass, because they think that it's something alive crawling across the top of the grass, and they will like freak out and just come and wreck it. But guys, I've not got a lot of light left, so we're gonna try and catch one today. I may end up having to film more of this video tomorrow. I'm gonna try and catch at least one fish using a jig so that you all can see you can catch fish during this time of the year, which is summer, on a jig. And I'm going to choose the hopping method. I'm going to give it 2 pops and let it sit. Give it 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. Couple pops, reel up my slack, and you'll feel the hit. It'll be a boom. Or sometimes it's a boom boom. And sometimes you won't feel it. Sometimes you'll just see your line running sideways and you will know something's picked it up, and you just have to reel up the slack and then slam it. All right, guys, I think I am gonna switch to a swim jig. So I'll be right back with you. All right, guys. So now we have a swim jig on, and it has a paddle tail swim bait on the back of it. Now, this, if you can't guess by the name, you swim. You do not hop this. Although you can hop this, you can drag this, but this is made to swim. And I'm going to give you an extra tip. If you can, throw on the other bank, because watch this. See how smooth that was entering? Not a big loud slap on the water. And these are easy, you just chuck and wind. But I'm going to throw it on top, on the other side, and I'm going to ease it down into the water. Now, this doesn't have any flash, this doesn't have any rattles, this doesn't have any extra with it. It is merely a swim bait with a jig for a hook. I'm just going to ease it in and hope that something wrecks it. All right, guys, so I've switched baits again, and I switched to a subtype of jig that I actually forgot to tell you all about. This is what's known as a chatterbait. Some people call, the general term is a bladed jig. Now, this blade goes back and forth on that head, and it makes a lot of noise. And the bass have a lateral line on their side, and that vibration is really, really noticeable to that lateral line, and they'll seek it out to see what it is. But we're gonna try this for a while until my battery dies, because I've already charged the phone, charged my thing just a little bit. But we're gonna see if we can make this work. Like I say, if I don't catch one by the end of the day, I will see you tomorrow. This happens to be a big blade, so it has an extra hard thump as you bring it through the water. You can see the end of my rod is just quivering from how much vibration it puts off. Now, this is just like any other swim jig. You throw it out and you reel it back. Yes, you can drag it. Yes, you can pop it. I just don't prefer that. I prefer to just chuck and wind. All right, guys, we are back at the pond. It is not as early as I'd like, but we have lured and all of the subjects. Well, that's more than likely lady in all the subjects. Lord is probably somewhere on watch, or maybe he's being lazy and he's in bed still. Come on, Lord, get out of bed. All 5 subjects seem to be doing good. But we are, of course, continuing the jig video, trying to catch a bass on a jig. And we are still using our vibrating bladed jig. Some people call this a chatterbait, which is the first big jig that really made waves with this style of lure. It's kind of like calling tissue Kleenex, but we're going to throw it around this morning, see if we can catch something. Oh, I'm on. Oh, that's a nice fish too. Oh, that's a nice fish, I really think. Oh, it's running at me. Oh. Oh, come on up here, baby. Look at that, guys. Just look at that. And he massacred that jig. Oh, he just tore my hand to pieces. Oh, he just, every time he shakes, them teeth tear me to pieces. Boy, if you just let me, I want to look at you. Oh, there goes my jig. Now guys, this is probably a 3-pound fish. Like, I'll put him next to my rod so you understand just how big that is. So that's all the way up to right there on my rod where it says line. That is an awesome fish. And that's what you can catch on a jig. You can catch a nice big one like that. Whew. I always want mama. Well, mama showed up. Thank you so very much. Going back to you babies. Whew. Let me tell you right there is why we fish a jig. A jig will get the big bites. And that's why I like fishing a bladed jig, because boy, they get the big bites. All right guys, so you've seen basics work. This works. I've caught bigger fish on other jigs, but you saw I can still catch big fish just swimming. I wasn't doing I wasn't doing the Alabama shake or doing any kind of special technique. I just cast it out there, roll it back, and one nailed it. And let me tell you, that's the kind of fun you go after when you're fishing. But using these basic techniques, the hop, the drag, the swim, you can take something like this and turn it into big bass. Jigs, for whatever reason, get a big bite. They just do. Those rubber things out there, you just see them, and they're really fine movement in the water, especially if the fish runs up on it. It's of course pushing water, and that water pushes against this thing and makes them do that. Makes it look alive. Beautifully done when they're on bottom. But this jig, this one is probably my favorite type to throw. A bladed jig's just my style. A swim jig's my style. I'm kind of an impatient fisherman, but sometimes, like during the winter time and when it gets like really boiling hot during the summer, I have to slow down and I just drag it just slow as possible. It takes like 2 minutes to get a cast in. But guys, you can take these basics and go catch fish now. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video with the usual YouTube things, like, share, subscribe, comment, hit that bell notification. That way you can see all my other videos. Please subscribe. It costs you nothing and it helps me so much. We'll see you somewhere in the woods or on the water.